From the burning mesas of the Arizona desert to the slot machine-clad boardwalks of New Jersey, it's the Imaginarium with Scott and Todd. I'm Scott Colbert.
I'm the horror nerd, Todd Staruch.
And to alleviate anybody's concerns about the general well-being of my mental health, let me just say, Maud is still back on at 5 p.m.
Okay.
Uh,
Wow.
People are very, very concerned because I did not get my dose of Maud.
Wow.
That sounds like a disease.
It does.
I went out with that bitch and I got a dose of Maud. Can you believe that shit? So, how are you, Tom? How are you, Tom?
Oh, I am just dandy. It stopped raining here. It was kind of nice today. Nice, crisp 50 degrees.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Well, it's been a bit nipply here.
Yeah?
It's been
What, like 70?
Yeah, actually, 70. And in fact, there's a meme I saw, and I'll have to post it later. But it's a picture of somebody standing in the middle of the desert in a parka and all these winter clothes on, and it's what did it say? Arizona in the winter when it's 60 degrees.
Exactly.
That's pretty much it.
You know, it's funny. We like to tease you guys, and we like to tease Southerners and Southern Californians and stuff. But I get it. Like I get it. Like you get used to the warm weather, so
Yeah.
cold to you guys is very different than cold. I lived my whole life in the Northeast, so for me, 50 degrees is not even jacket weather.
Yeah.
I made one concession. I switched from short sleeves to long sleeves. That was about it.
Yeah. Getting on a serious topic for a minute before we go into our topic of not only this week but the week after, because we're going to split this into 2 episodes.
Yes.
I know it. Something new and different.
Scary.
It is, because you know how much people love new things.
Exactly.
So.
All right, so
We'll
what's
see
your
how this-
serious topic? Your serious
Okay,
comment.
now there was a woman who was in Chicago. She went into the Michael's craft store, and she's up at the cashier checking out, and she had a purchase that was too big for any of the bags that they had. So the clerk said, "We've got these other bags that you can buy for $1 that you can, stick it in." And then the woman went off on a racist tirade, and it was videotaped and it went viral, and that's how I saw it originally, was this video. And then come to find out a couple of days later, she had done the same thing, but using homophobic slurs against the barista at a Pete's coffee shop.
Same woman?
Same woman. So as a result of this, she really got hammered on social media, as is wont to happen when these things occur.
Yeah.
And she got fired from her job. And she, get this, she worked in human resources.
Oh my God.
So that's not quite a surprise.
Wow.
Yeah. Human resources for a hospital, no less.
Jeez.
Now, my question is, at what point do we become the bullies? And when do we become no better than she is? And do we really have a right to deprive somebody out of their employment?
That is always a quandary, my friend. I think it all depends on the circumstances. It may, if she works for a private company, they get to set, or maybe not even a private company, wherever she may work, they get to set their standards for employment. I can only use myself as an example. I work in IT security, and I belong to an organization, and we are bound by a particular code of ethics. And if at any point I am found to have violated that, I can be fired and I might never work in IT security again. So I don't know what, the circumstances of her or the conditions of her employment were. One area where I do, have to draw the line is I hate it when, like radio shock jocks get fired for making outrageous comments.
Yeah.
That I find kind of silly. You hire someone like a Don Imus or a Howard Stern because you know exactly what you're getting, and then when they say something offensive, then they get fired. I think that's kind of silly.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's tricky. I don't know, man. I don't know what the answer is. I get your point. I do. I just don't know what the answer is.
Because I was thinking about that, and I'm thinking about Twitter is really coming down on the, well, they call themselves alt-right, but I don't like that term because it just sugarcoats what they are, which is, Nazis.
Yeah, pretty much.
Pretty much. And a lot of them are being banned from Twitter. Now, from my own political beliefs, I have absolutely no problem with that whatsoever. But from an objective point of view, we may not like the Ku Klux Klan, but, their hate speech is still protected under the First Amendment. Like you said, it's a fine line. Where do we draw it, and what is acceptable and what's not? And my thing, I believe, really it boils down to, specifically with Twitter, Twitter is, it's not something that you have to be on.
Right.
And, even to that extent, you don't need access to the internet. These things are not rights. They're privileges. These are things that we are able to have because we work and we earn money to pay the bills for them.
Right.
So, and you don't pay anything for Twitter. People get all pissed off when Twitter does something like that. And my response is, well, cancel your payment to them.
Yeah, I am a huge free speech advocate. I'm a huge civil rights advocate, but I always hate when people throw around the phrase free speech a little too freely. I think if this woman did get fired, that's up to her employer. It's not like the government came in and said she needs to be fired because of what she said. There is a such thing as free speech, but speech has consequences. And that's what people, I think, don't seem to understand. You can say whatever the fuck you want, but, but then when people react to it, you can't hold up the Constitution in front of you and say, hey, free speech, because that only applies to the government censorship of free speech. So, that's, for me, it's pretty simple. Say whatever's on your mind. But if your employer gets wind of it and you get fired, well, maybe you should have thought it through a little bit better. I have my moments, man. I have my moments where I'm in a store or wherever I might be and I get angry or whatever, but I like to think of myself as a polite person. So I don't go off on some tirade on some clerk. I'm just like, oh, well, you know what? I guess I just had a shitty day today, and that's it.
Common respect for people. Now, I say that, and I know full well that I don't always do that. In fact,
dude, we're humans. We're humans. Oh, yeah. We have failings. I'm not. I'm certainly no saint. I've said a lot of shitty things in my life, that I'm not particularly proud of,
Oh, absolutely. I've worked behind a counter and I've worked customer service on the phone, and I've gotten the abuse from people. So when I go out and I deal with, somebody at the local convenience store or at the supermarket, or if I have to call, the phone company or whoever it may be, I tend to have a little bit more patience with them because I understand exactly what it is that they're doing and what they're going through.
Right.
And the thing is, when you do it that way, you end up getting better service because they're like, well, hey, somebody who's not a dick.
Look, there's shitty people in the world.
Yep.
You know, there's people who are good at customer service and people who are bad at customer service. You know, you also need to know who to target. Like one area where my ex-wife and I used to clash was she never seemed to realize that the low-level clerk behind the counter is not empowered to help you. That person is not empowered to give you a discount or give you a refund. You know, you need to just say, look, I'm sorry to take it out on you. Please call your manager.
Yeah.
And that's it. You know, whatever that $8 an hour cashier, they don't have the ability to make decisions, you know, to solve your problem. You need to know who to go after. Just like the person at the call center, you know, they have a shitty freaking life, man, because all they do is get yelled at all day long.
Yep.
Imagine that, you know, if all you did was just get yelled at for an 8-hour shift. How happy would you fucking be, you know, when caller number 97, you know, gets on the line because, you know, their delivery was late by an hour or something, you know, and they're blaming you for that.
And most of my work life has been in customer service, and whether it was for Wells Fargo or American Express or whatever the case may be. So, and you know, the thing is, when you talk about people who are cut out for customer service, I'm not one of them. I'm really not. And unfortunately, I didn't really come to grips with that until it was far too late to make a career change.
Yeah.
Here's the thing about customer service. You first start a new customer service job and you go through the training, and you know it's exciting because you're at a new job, you're meeting new people, and you want to do your best. And then within maybe 2 or 3 weeks, the customers just whittle you down until you're nothing but a sore nub, and you just curse them under your breath while you have them on hold for no reason at all, other than you just want to put them on hold. My hat's off to the people who do customer service, because it's hard as fuck to be nice to people anymore.
It is, and I do get that. I believe it or not, I know people are going to giggle like when they hear this, but I actually do have patience, because I know that first person that picks up the phone when I call is just the front line. Yep. They're not going to ultimately be the person that's going to resolve my issue necessarily. I've had some good experiences recently. I had a problem with my Verizon Fios. I called up. Dude on the phone was polite and cheerful. Got my problem resolved, and that was it. It was inconvenient that I had to call, but you know what? Shit happens.
Yeah.
People who get mad, I want to know, do they live a charmed fucking life where nothing ever goes wrong, and they never have a problem with their power or their water or anything, they just, oh, look how great everything is,
My mom's saying is her phone, my phone is so slow, it doesn't do what I want it to do. Let's put aside the fact that 99% of the problems she's ever had with her phones or her computer has been her.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. And it reminds me of the Louis C.K. routine where people, my phone's too slow. It has to beam up to satellites by the sun.
Yeah, exactly.
Everybody wants everything, yesterday.
Yeah, it's funny like that. I love Louis C.K. because that's my kind of humor, like just pointing out like just absurdities in everyday life. Like when people bitch about like the spotty Wi-Fi on an airplane, he's like, did it ever occur to you that you're sitting in a chair and flying through the fucking sky? And you're bitching that the Wi-Fi is a little slow.
There's a comedian I just discovered, and he's been doing it for 20 years, but I just heard about him because Vudu, the streaming service, not the stuff they practiced down in New Orleans, the streaming service Vudu, now has a free movies and stuff like that with just a minimum amount of commercials through it. So I was checking it out on my phone, and they have a stand-up comedy section, and one of the comedians was Eddie Iffet. And I'd never heard of him before, but the name of his show was I Love Pussy. And I thought, I don't love pussy, but I'm going to watch this show anyway.
Just based on the title alone.
And Todd, it was one of the funniest sets of comedy I think I've ever seen.
Oh, I'll have to check that out then.
Yeah, definitely check it out. I made a comment a couple of days ago, which actually lost me a couple of followers on Facebook. And the line was, I told my boyfriend to get his asshole bleached, so he threw a cup of Clorox at me. that was kind of a joke from Eddie Iffett. That's the kind of humor that he's got. So it's definitely the kind of humor you would appreciate.
Cool.
So, and I've been checking out some of his other stuff, and I followed him on Twitter, and he followed me back, and he's really actually kind of a very cool guy.
Cool.
Funny as hell, though. All right, anyway, we are going to talk about some of our favorite movies from this past year. Not necessarily the best movies, because, you and I have talked about, it's hard to say what's best. But it's always just easier to say, well, these are some of my favorite movies.
Yeah, because it's so subjective, too,
Yeah.
To say, what was the best? I don't know.
It absolutely is. And so we're going to do like we do with Weekday Matinee. And we got 5 movies and 1 dog. And before we actually start that, somebody had asked me about Weekday Matinee because we didn't have a show in September and we didn't have a show in November, and they were wondering what was happening with Weekday Matinee. And I just want to say Weekday Matinee is still active. Jerry Janda will be taking a leave of absence, I guess I would call it, for a few episodes. So I'm going to have revolving co-hosts. And the first revolving co-host is going to be Jack Random.
Cool.
Yeah. We're supposed to be recording that next week.
Awesome.
So Weekday Matinee will be back. But until then, you're just kind of stuck with this. Oh, and welcome back, Detective D. He was in Hong Kong for a week.
Good for him.
Yeah, he certainly deserved that.
Was he detecting?
You know what? I don't even want to know what he was doing.
That was bad. That was lame. I can't believe I just said that.
It's been nice working with you, Todd.
Yeah, that was lame. My God.
You better take some whiskey.
That's a good idea. That is an absolutely good idea.
I'll go first while you're getting tanked on the whiskey.
Okay. Awesome.
And when I was coming up with this list, I was thinking back through all the movies that I watched this year. And my list, it's kind of odd, and it's going to really make me sound like kind of a pretentious douche. And really, that's not the case at all. But 4 of my movies are foreign.
Oh, God. You are a pretentious douche. Oh, my God. How bougie can you be? God. But the first one, okay.
And the one I'm going to start with, it was probably the biggest blockbuster of the year. That was Deadpool.
Cool.
Deadpool is definitely one of my favorite movies of the year. And even though I just said we don't really like talking about best movies of the year, I think it is one of the best movies of the year. And I really think it's going to end up on a lot of bloggers and critics' best of the year lists when that happens in a couple of weeks. It's funny. It's action-packed. It's romantic. There's some pathos to it. It's got everything that you need. And it doesn't water down the character. It was finally a superhero movie for adults.
Yes. Yes.
And that's what I liked. It was for adults. That didn't stop stupid adults from bringing their kids to the fucking movie. But
Deadpool is one of those characters where parents have no fucking clue. I see it. I go to conventions and I see a bunch of little kids running around as Deadpool, and I'm like, oh my god! Like if their moms and dads only knew, what the character really is all about.
Parents really need to kind of get somewhat of a clue, because I know when I was growing up, you know, this is one of those back in my day. We walked uphill to school both ways, 10 miles, without shoes, in a snowstorm. One of those things. My mother specifically, she was very vigilant about the types of things that I would watch and the types of movies that I could see. Because she knew, and it's not like she wanted to keep me from certain things. She just knew the type of a kid that I was and what might affect me. Now, there were certain things that she wouldn't let me watch because they were too adult. One of them I remember was an episode of Good Times where JJ thinks he gets a venereal disease.
Right.
And that had like a mature audience warning before it. And which I find very funny now, because now that would be absolutely nothing.
Yeah, please.
But back in 75 or 76,
yeah, it was a big deal.
Thing. Yeah, and she wouldn't let me watch that episode. And I did not get to see that episode until maybe a couple of months ago when it was on Antenna TV. I finally saw it. And the funny thing about that, it had the very first appearance of Jay Leno anywhere. And he played a guy in the waiting room of the VD clinic.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah. Little interesting tidbit there. Getting back to Deadpool. As we love our tangents so much.
We do.
What makes Deadpool really is Ryan Reynolds. The writing is smart, the directing is smart, but I don't think it would be nearly the movie that it is with Ryan Reynolds.
Oh, absolutely. He was tailor-made for it, and I'm glad. If there are a couple of articles out there in the interwebs that talk about how the studio fought every step of the way to make the movie, everything that it was not, and the director and particularly Ryan Reynolds stuck to their guns and insisted that an R-rated adult superhero movie could work. Yeah. And I'm so glad that it turned out that way, because the character was so shitty in X-Men Origins Wolverine. So it's not saying much, because the only place to go from there was up. They could have done Deadpool with fucking paper cutouts, and it would have been better than Wolverine. Yeah. But yeah, I agree with you. He definitely made it. And again, because, like I've always said this, it was because he was a good Wade Wilson. You can put anybody in the costume, just like Batman. You need a good Bruce Wayne. Or Iron Man, Robert Downey Jr. is a great Tony Stark. Yeah. So yeah, I couldn't agree more. He played it perfectly.
All right, what's your first one?
All right, my first one was a horror film, and it's part of sort of like the I don't know, new wave is a really, really bad term, but sort of like the next wave of horror films that came out that were not big on blood and gore and stuff like that, and action and jump scares, and that was The Witch.
Yep.
I really, really love that movie, and it's weird. Yes. It seems like people, especially horror fans, like either loved it or hated it. When it first came out, I went to see it. And I loved it. I was like, that was really cool. It was a slow burn. It left a lot up to the imagination. It was just had like a feeling of a creepy dread feeling, where you're just like, oh man, something really fucking bad is going to happen, And of course, all the horror, all the short attention horror, all the short attention span horror fans said, "Oh, that movie sucked. It was so slow. Nothing ever happened." Well, if you think nothing happened, like you probably were busy playing on your phone, and
Yeah.
you weren't paying attention. I'm sorry that you can't like sit through a movie that has an actual plot and story. Um, but I liked it. Movies like that and It Follows, and to a lesser extent, The Gallows, which I wasn't a huge fan of. But I'm glad that there's more and more movies like that. Low budget, not over reliant on effects or slick CGI or anything, and they tell a story. The director of The Witch, whose name escapes me right now, but I'm gonna look it up. Robert Eggers. He did 5 years of research so he could get the costumes correct and the version of English that they spoke correct, to really pull you into the time period, and immerse you, and so you understand why these people think and act the way they do. I know there's a lot of religious people in the world, but back then they took that shit seriously. Like the devil and witches, like that shit was real, and they were staunchly pious people. So they did a great job, I think, portraying that world in that movie. And I hope 2017 brings more movies like that. I think Hollywood is realizing, because at the end of the day, they're a business.
Yep.
But I think they're realizing that they can make a movie for $1 or $2 million and turn around and make 30 million off of it. While it's not a blockbuster, I'll take that profit margin any fucking day of the week. So I think they're slowly starting to realize that.
And that's not even including anything that they make from streaming it and deals that they'll make with Netflix or Amazon or any of the others.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So, and I hope so. 2017, I have to say, was actually a pretty good year for horror movies.
So you know that now, even though it's still only 2016.
I mean, 2016. Wow. I'm sorry.
When did you get your TARDIS?
It's the retard. The Witch was very close to making my list. And if we had gone to like 10 or something, it definitely would have been there. I absolutely love this movie. And aside from, the initial, plot line of what's going on, you see the way the family interacts and the problems within the family structure. And so there's a lot of, that going on, which I think really, because in spite of the setting and in spite of the language, everybody can deal with sibling rivalry, sibling jealousy.
Sure.
And in the case of the little boy, who's starting to get into puberty, trying to take a look at his sister's boobs.
Yeah, that's funny you brought that up, because I thought that was like an interesting sort of angle that they brought, that whole dynamic,
Yeah.
I thought that was actually very clever that they did that, because you're right. The family was so isolated, it's not he sees any other girls of that age, So it's I agree. That was a very, very interesting angle that they took.
It's just a well-done movie, and two of my movies are very similar in tone to that, so I'm excited to talk about those. All right, so my next one, debated on whether I should put this on or not, and this is ultimately what replaced The Witch, so I guess, looking at it now is probably a good thing. It's not that it's a favorite movie, but it's certainly a movie that I think people should see. But there's some qualifications to that I'll get to in a minute. And it's the new Paul Verhoeven movie, Elle. And I know you're saying, what, Paul Verhoeven has a new movie out? Yes, he does.
No, I was aware of that. I have not seen it.
Oh, have you seen it?
No, I have not.
Oh, you haven't?
I have not seen it.
I didn't know it until somebody had posted about their seeing it on Facebook, and I thought, oh, because Paul Verhoeven is, one of my favorite directors.
Yep.
I got to see it, and it's about a woman who is brutally raped and how she deals with her rapist, because she ends up in kind of like a Stockholm syndrome type relationship with her rapist. And it's a very, very difficult movie at times to watch. The rape scenes are very brutal. And I don't like trigger warnings, and we've talked about that before. But I would say seriously, if you've been a victim of sexual assault, or if it's something that you have a lot of passionate beliefs about, you might want to skip it because it'll give you fucking nightmares. Those scenes are very brutal. Now, having said that, the rest of the movie is kind of slow and boring. The main character, the woman, she, middle-aged woman, she's in the process of a divorce. She owns a video game company. She has an adult son who is who's henpecked by his girlfriend, who has a baby that's black. She's pregnant, and then she has the baby, and the baby turns out to be black, and the kid still thinks it's his baby. So there's that dynamic going on. Not a lot ever really happens, and the end of the movie, it kind of limps to the ending, and you just kind of left with, I just feel like I was had the shit beat out of me for no reason whatsoever, but I kind of liked it. It's one of those movies. And if people are expecting it to be something like RoboCop or any of the other U.S. movies that Verhoeven has done, it's not. It's much, much closer in tone and scope to the things that he did before he came to the U.S. Things like The Fourth Man and stuff like that.
Right. Huh. I'm going to have to check it out.
Yeah, it's well worth, like I said, it's well worth checking out. I know you'll probably like it. I think you probably feel about it the same way I do, because we have similar tastes when it comes to movies like that. But I wanted to like it a lot more than what I did. But I was just really disturbed by the rape scenes. And the other thing is, it's in French. He made the movie in France because he can't get any movie deals in the U.S. anymore. They won't finance him. So he actually had to go to France to make this movie. And it was his first movie in about 10 years.
Yeah, I had been wondering for a while what had happened to Paul Verhoeven.
Yeah, I have no doubt that he, aside from the types of movies that he makes, which Hollywood, steers away from, he's probably just not the easiest person to deal with.
Well, yeah.
I get the feeling he's really probably kind of a dick.
It wouldn't surprise me.
He's an artiste. He's got that kind of a temperament. So I think that probably has alienated him from a lot of Hollywood. Somebody makes a movie like Starship Troopers, you got to give them some slack. I love that movie, Starship Troopers. I absolutely love it.
Me too. Me too. I always did.
All right, so check that one out if you can find it. But it's worth seeking out. And if it comes to a theater here, I will go and see it and support it. But
yeah, I definitely want to check it out now that you talked it up.
Absolutely. All right, so what's your next one?
All right, so my next one, I really, really like this movie. I'm especially being a sci-fi fan, and I like the feel of this movie. It's a movie by a director called Jeff Nichols called Midnight Special. And it will remind you of Firestarter, in the sense that it's about a parent that has a child that has special powers, and they're being chased by the government, et cetera, et cetera. So it has kind of that Stephen King or even like a Spielbergian kind of sentiment you know, child special powers being chased by the government. But what I really like about the movie is it's a low budget movie without really any special effects or anything, but it has like a big budget feel. Like I don't even know how else to describe it. It seems like a more of a spectacle than it really is, but I like the fact that it concentrates just on the characters, instead of trying to create some weird otherworldly type of sci-fi spectacle. Um, you know, it very much centers on the relationship between the dad and the son, and you could tell that the dad is a little bit afraid of his own boy because he's not entirely sure what he's capable of. I don't really want to give too much away, as far as the nature of the kid's powers and stuff like that. I want people to see it. So I really don't want to give anything away, but I highly recommend it. We talked about our favorite sci-fi movies, and you mentioned Close Encounters. You can definitely tell that the influence of Close Encounters and even Starman to a degree. You will definitely pick up the influence of movies like that. But this was one really good sci-fi movie. Again, like one of the criticisms was like lack of action, and I'm like, yeah, but it's not an action movie, this is not Men in Black. It's not, it's not an action movie. This whole group of people that seem to only like movies that look like they're music videos, really get on my nerves. I really think they're missing out. They're missing out on a lot of good movies because they sit there and they go, oh my God, this is so boring. Well, I don't know what to tell you. Then go see the next, Fast and Furious movie. What can I tell you? But yeah, Midnight Special, great movie.
At first I was thinking it was about the old TV show Midnight Special.
Negative.
And that would actually be a cool movie, a behind the scenes look at Midnight Special. No, that's neither here nor there. I've not heard of this one, so I will. You have me matched. So you check out Hell. I will check out Midnight Special.
Yeah, I believe it's on Netflix right now. Like you can check it out right on Netflix. It's readily available.
Oh, awesome.
So yeah, check it out.
I definitely will. All right, my next one is a movie I actually I talked about a little bit on another show a few episodes back, and it's the Turkish horror movie Basket.
Yeah, you talked about that one. Yeah.
Yes. Now, did you get a chance to see it since then?
I have not. I am so far behind on my movie watching.
How good are you?
Well, but I'm not for nothing, but here's the fucking problem. I like so many of the superhero movies that are on TV right now. Yeah. And starting on Monday, they had a crossover between Supergirl, The Flash, Arrow, and Legends of Tomorrow. So I've been watching that. So those are the shows. I'm just so caught up in all those shows right now because they're so much fun. Like, just as a quick aside, those shows, Supergirl, Arrow, and Supergirl, Arrow, Flash, and to a lesser extent, Legends of Tomorrow. That's what I wish the movies like Man of Steel and Dawn of Justice could have been. Because they have their serious moments, but they also know how to balance humor and fun. They're not just relentlessly dreary all the time.
Right.
So I watched The Flash, and I'm like, oh my God, if only Dawn of Justice could have been this, I would have liked it. Sorry, I didn't mean to hijack your movie pick.
No, that's all right. But as long as we have the sides, if you haven't, check out the Exorcist TV series.
It's on my DVR. I haven't watched it yet.
The first episode starts off a little bit slow, but it picks up. And if you think that it's going to be watered down for television, the language obviously would be, but not any of the possession effects or any of the scares. It's a very creepy, very scary series, and of course it will probably end up being canceled because nobody watches it on fucking Friday night. But check it out; it's well worth watching. Okay, with that said, Baskin. Is that what I was talking about?
Yes.
Okay. Because I was thinking Baskin Robbins, then I got hungry. 31 flavors. All right, so yeah, Baskin was a Turkish horror movie about five or six policemen who end up in an accident on a way to a call, and they end up finding themselves in the remains of an old police station, which actually is hell. And it has, it's probably one of the goriest movies I've seen in a long time. It has a very Clive Barker feel to it. And it has one of the creepiest villains I've ever seen. And how creepy, Scott? Well, I'll tell you how creepy. I thought this guy had a ton of makeup on, and he didn't. He actually looks the way he looks in this movie, which I think is even more frightening. It's well acted. You know, the storyline is really fairly thin. I mean, everything that I just said is basically the entire movie, but it's not like there's any, surprises or anything along the way. It's well made. And as I said the last time that I talked about it, the only issue that I had about it, in the translation from Turkish to English, they would use the word bro and dude a lot, like almost every sentence. And that got a little bit tiring.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's a fantastic, fantastic horror movie. And this is for the ones who complain about the movies being too slow. So,
all right. So listen, I am a gorehound as well. So it's been on my list for ages. My Netflix queue has about 7,000 movies in it. I could start watching now and watch for the rest of my life and never see all of them. So.
Oh, I know. And I know what you mean with the TV series, because I started watching the Supernatural. And that's not only does that have like 12 seasons, but each season has like 22 or 23 episodes in it.
Oh, yeah.
And I've only finished the first season, so I've got, over 100 more of this show to go before I'm caught up. And it's hard to watch that and then watch the movies that I want to watch too, because I'm really enjoying Supernatural. I'm liking it a hell of a lot more than I thought I would.
I watched the first 2 seasons of it, and then for no apparent reason, I just stopped watching it. Like I watch so much TV that I feel like guilty about it. So sometimes I just trim my viewing list. And then I like this, the season premiere and I'm like, season premiere? This show's been on for like 40 years, it seems, It's been on for a long time. I had no idea it was still around.
I probably never would have watched it, but when I was in the hospital the last time, TBN was running, I guess, kind of like a marathon of it. And so I was watching it all throughout the night and the next morning. And I just got hooked on it. Dynamic between the brothers is really good. I like them, and they they work well together. And let's be honest, they're nice to look at. They're easy on the eyes.
You know what? Yeah, there are a couple of good-looking dudes. I'll give you that.
All right, what's your next one?
All right. I too have one on my list that was kind of a blockbuster, but that I felt was actually a really well done movie. Captain America: Civil War.
Mm-hmm.
Great. It was a great storyline in the comics. I thought they did a good job with it, bringing it to the screen. I thought it had a good combination of action and storyline. I know it's a comic book movie. I know it's just it's a superhero movie. I get it, but you could really feel the conflict between Tony Stark and Steve Rogers. and you could really feel like they both were struggling with it. I thought that the villain was a little weak. Just it took forever for him to kind of.
But that's always been a problem with Marvel.
Yeah, like the villain, I just thought was a little weak, but some of the action sequences, man, I'm always in love with movie magic,
Yeah.
And the sequence in the tunnel with Winter Soldier on the motorcycle, and when he jumps off and grabs the motorcycle, swings it around, I'm like, how did they even do that? Like, who even thought that was possible?
Yeah.
And Captain America, Steve Rogers holding on to the helicopter, like, just the action set pieces were incredible. And again, this is where Marvel gets it right. And I know, like, the DC and the Marvel nerds are always clashing, but I just like the little bit more lighthearted nature. There were the comic moments, because Tony Stark always has some smart ass comment. I liked Ant-Man, I thought that he was big in it, and
yeah,
I think it was Falcon that says, "Tiny guy is big, tiny guy is big." I just thought that was probably how someone really would react,
Yeah.
And that whole set piece at the airport with with Giant Man, and I just thought it was cool. The Marvel movies are fun, in a way that the DC movies are not,
Yeah.
I have no problem with the darker, grittier nature of some of the DC films. I really don't. Like, I thought the Chris Nolan Batman films were great because Batman is a dark and gritty character,
Yeah.
If you go back in the comics, he's dark and violent, and let's face it, he's fucked up.
Yeah.
He's crazy. So I really don't have a problem with it, but the Man of Steel and Dawn of Justice were just so relentlessly grim,
Yeah.
that I just couldn't deal. I mean, I know how you feel about Dawn of Justice, and you and I think feel the same way. I saw an article about possible villains for Man of Steel 2, and I'm like, I don't even fucking care. I honestly don't. Like, I really don't care. I like when the movie comes out, I'll see it, but I'm not even following along. I honestly don't give a shit. So, but that's okay. I mean, I know there were a lot of people that like the DC movies, and that's cool. As we say all the time, any kind of art is very subjective. So, but yeah, Civil War, I thought was really cool. It just, every Marvel movie just makes me want more and more for them to get to the point of the Infinity War. We got to get through a few more standalone movies. I think we got to get through a Thor movie and a Hulk movie, and then we finally get to Infinity War Part 1. So
do we really need another Hulk movie? I mean, they tank at the box office.
I'd like to have a calm discussion on this topic. You think we can manage that?
Friends, it's so foolish to suffer with an ordinary headache when Bromo Seltzer gives you such fast, pleasant, three-way relief.
It's true, Mr. Weed. Bromo Seltzer is so pleasant to take, and it works so fast to help your headache all three ways.
Yes, Bromo Seltzer speedily fights the headache pain itself. Then it goes right to work to soothe the upset stomach and jangled nerves that often may team up with a headache. Try it next time you get a headache. Prove to yourself just how fast it works to help your headache all three ways.
We tried a lot of headache products, but it's Bromo Seltzer from now on for our family.
You'll say the same thing, too, once you've discovered Bromo Seltzer. So get a bottle today and be prepared at all times to fight a headache fast all three ways.
It's smart to keep Bromo Seltzer both at home and at your place of business.
That's right, folks. Remember, Bromo Seltzer gives you fast three-way help for a headache. It's on sale at all drugstores. Caution, use only as directed. If headaches recur or persist, see your doctor. Get Bromo Seltzer today and...